All right, welcome everyone. We're getting started with the ManitouNEO Enhanced Action Patterns third session. We have our other two sessions available on our YouTube channel, and also if you did sign up for the previous courses, they will be available for you. You will have them in your email. Also, we do have files attached to this. This is also on your Go to Meetings bar, and it's under handouts, and there are actually two handouts for this session. And those handouts, one is the script message codes, and the other is signal processing attributes, which I'll be referencing as we go through this session. Also, if you happen to not download those before the end of this session, they're also available in the Bold Genius Resource Library. Last session, we covered the select case and loop logic items. And this session, we are going to go over scenarios that you can build that will go over live items as well as things that are going to be static about the customer record. And then we're going to base some conditions on it. And then we're going to do some basic query of the data. So we're going to get into slightly more complex items, building on the last two sessions that we covered. So always, 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 it's still important to plan all of your action patterns before you actually build them, because you need to know what happens before, and you also need to know, does that action pattern make sense in solving your customer or business need? There we go. So our first customer scenario is one of the most common scenarios that occur in monitoring centers today. Do something different when the event is restored. We have key elements that we must consider. Can you get rid of the event if the event is restored? Or do we have to make calls, but is it a lower priority, or do we delay the call for other events, things like that? So we're going to take a look at a specific scenario. This scenario is if the communication failure alarm restores before an operator receives the alarm, for example, in less than 10 minutes, close the alarm, except when the customer has a UL grade of CSBG, and then just contact the customer and then email the contact list. So you'll see over here on the right-hand side, I have a flow chart of what this looks like. I have a communication failure, suspend it for 10 minutes, and then look to see if it's restored. If it's not restored, contact the customer, contact the key holders. If it is restored, then we have to look to see, is it UL? Does it have that UL grade? If it does have that UL grade, we still have to contact the customer, but we can email the contacts. And if it's not UL, then we just close the alarm. So we want to make sure that that looks the way we want it to. So what does that look like inside ManitouNEO? So I'm going to switch over to my ManitouNEO system, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like inside ManitouNEO. I'm going to go into edit mode so that you can see what this looks like when we build it. Now, I've gone ahead and made my suspend for just 2 minutes so that you can see what it looks like as we're actually running through the different scenarios of whether it's a UL account or not a UL account, things like that. But I wanted to show you what that kind of flow chart looks like. And you can see I've got these little guys where I can collapse and expand them so that we can actually collapse kind of our pieces. So my first thing is I'm going to suspend it for 2 minutes instead of my 10 minutes. If it's not restored, else, and if. So I got my if, else, and end if is my general flow. And then if it's not restored, I'm going to do my regular thing. I'm going to contact the customer at site, contact the customer key holder, and close the alarm. Otherwise, I'm going to check if the UL grade is that CSBG. And then if it is that CSBG, then I want to contact the customer at the site. I want to contact the customer key holder and close the alarm. But if it is not CSBG, then I just want to close the alarm. So it's a pretty straightforward flow as far as that goes. It's true or not true, and then we just step through it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually run this. Now I built this on the dealer record. You can see I've got my safe and sound security, but I have two different customers that are under this dealer. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard and I'm going to pick my two customers. I've got my Morgan Family Stores. That is a non-UL account. I can see that I don't have a UL symbol here, and I don't have any UL grade on my customer status. And I can send in my restored communication failure. So I'm going to send in a manual signal, and I have my LT event is my communication failure. So I'm going to do my LT, my phone line trouble, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually going to have it automatically restore first. So I've got my LT, I got a LR for my line restore. There we go, my phone line trouble and my phone line restore. I'm going to send those in. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my Bold Technologies, which is a UL account. So I've got my UL here, I've got my UL grade, and it has a CSBG, which is the UL grade that I'm looking for. I'm going to send a manual signal for that one, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my LT and my LR. I'm going to send those signals in. Bold Technologies, send those in. And now we've got our 2 minutes to wait. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at our alarm queue here. And those alarms are in there. We've got both a phone line trouble. They're both suspended. They're just sitting here waiting for that 2 minute time to period. CSBG, what does that CSBG stand for? It's just a UL grade that we happen to have in their database. Those are just the standard ones that we have in the default database. You can have your own UL grades listed. They just happen to be the ones that we have listed in our particular database. You can always have them customized for your own. So very good question there, Taylor. So we've got our 2 minutes to wait. So I can also take a look at the activity log and see what that looks like in the record. So I've got my phone line trouble. I've got the auto client has it suspended for the 2 minutes, and that's 11:09 here, and it's 11:11. So we still have about 40 more seconds on the UL account. Let's take a look at the Morgan family stores and see how long we've got with that one. We've got just a couple more seconds, so I'm going to refresh that real quick. Take a look at that. Just a few more seconds. Come on. There we go. So you can see the auto client has already closed it out. So it was suspended, and then it released the time, and then it resolved it as a false alarm. So it went through and it cleared it out. Now on our Bold Technologies one, if we look at that one, it should be pretty much ready to release that. Let's see, come on. Now that one deferred to the alarm queue. So if we look here in the alarm queue, it is now available. Yep, it's available. So I can go ahead and pull that down as an operator. And there it has contact customer at site, contact key holder with the email, and close the alarm, because that's now the available action based on this being available as a UL account. So I press my D for do to contact the site, and I'm going to do my notified here, notified contact, and then I say done. And now I can actually defer this to the auto client, so I can actually do defer alarm to the auto client. And there we're done. I don't need to keep my alarm tracking. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and exit as the last alarm handler. And if I go back to my activity log here, I'm going to see that I had the suspended of the alarm. It deferred the alarm back to the alarm queue, which was then allocated to me, the alarm handler. I notified the contact, my response, my view to action here. And then I deferred back to the auto client, and the auto client then emailed, sent the message, and then closed the alarm. So it stepped through all the pieces as expected based on this being a UL account and that it restored. So the only other thing I need to do is I need to send one that doesn't actually restore on either one, and I'm going to send that over. I'm going to get rid of my restore line. I'm going to send that through. And we'll have to wait our 2 minutes, so we can go ahead and ask if anybody has any questions on this. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions while we wait our 2 minutes again. And we'll see how this goes. Let's see, nobody's asking questions, so we can go ahead and ask talk about any other items that might come up. So So I did it for UL, but I could do it for all sorts of other things. I can do it for residential and commercial. I can do it for even whether or not something was recently on test or a related account was on test. I can do this for many, many different things. One of the reasons why I gave you your handouts for this session is because of the fact that there are also things that we can actually look for or set and actually ask questions about within the actual action patterns themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to go back over to our safe and sound security while we're waiting our 2 minutes. I'm going to show you a couple things we can do. For example, I have this canceled check here. So I actually have this if statement here. If canceled, I can close the alarm with a resolution code, and then otherwise I can do my regular contacts. So I could actually build an action pattern just looking at it, but if canceled is really, really kind of important that I need to know my signal processing attributes. I have to be able to say, does my attribute have the ability to cancel? And if so, does that flag turn on? So inside the supervisor workstation, you can actually put attributes on the event codes that say, yes, this can be canceled, and then it turns a flag on saying that event can be canceled, and then we can actually flag it saying, if this event is canceled, close the alarm, and otherwise we're going to contact. Or I could actually say, if canceled, email, and then close the alarm. So there's lots and lots of different ways that we can actually approach this without actually having to interact with the operator every single time. So there's all sorts of different checks that you can do. There's also a different way you can do it, and this is actually what Matt Narowski built for me as well, because we were like, okay, maybe I don't want to look for a particular UL grade, maybe I want to look for just if UL exists. So we can actually look at the script message codes and say, look for the type of UL, and if it exists, then we can say, is it true or not true? And if it's true, then we can do some different behaviors. So we have different ways that we can query the database as well. I didn't want to query the database right away. I wanted to jump in and look at the stuff that we can pick and choose from. So there's all sorts of different ways that we can do that. So let's take a look at our Bold, or was it our Bold Technologies account? I think it was. So let's see. So this one was deferred. So if we go back to our alarm queue, and there it was deferred. Now we should have a different action pattern because we have, contact customer, contact key holders, but it's not the emailing of the key holders. So I'm going to do my D for do to contact the site. So we contact the site, say notified site, and we're going to continue that one. And then we have contact customer key holder, and there's our list of key holders. So we have our phone numbers for the people. And now we can say we contacted Alfred, Alfred notified, and we're going to say done with that. And now we can close the alarm, and we'll call it an actual alarm. Whoops, actual alarm, and then done. All right, and no, we're not going to keep our alarm tracking, and yes, we're exiting out as the last alarm handler. Okay, so back to our thing. So what other things might you want to look for in action patterns? So I'm asking for your input. So in your question field, tell me what other items are you looking for in your action patterns? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a poll then. So, oh, there we go. UL specific actions for runner times. I think I'd need a little bit more information on that, but we can certainly try that. If we've had multiple recent alarms on the same zone, absolutely, that's one that we can talk about. Multiple zones. Need more information on that, Brian, as far as what you mean by that. Same thing, trip on one zone versus multiple zones. Call if there's more than one. Yep, we can do counts, definitely. If we have an authority that is not, let's say, wants us to provide a permit number for customers, but also if the dealer is assigned a company number. Okay, I'm not quite sure. I don't understand that one, John. So we'll have to look at that a little bit more. I see a lot of comparisons. If one zone trips, do this. If two zones tripped, but we've got two trips. So I'm wondering if we're talking about using confirmed versus something else. Let's see. If an operator checks at the 2-hour mark, if a tech arrived, and 8 hours if an alarm is restored. Still not quite getting that one. So yeah, 2 different zones versus 1. Yep, absolutely. But we still have the ability to do confirmed alarm. That's something that's already there in Manitou. Let's see, let me get a little, I'm glad to see a lot of activity in these questions. Let's see. A different call list for one zone, absolutely. You can say if that's where you use your case and logic that we did in the last session, we can definitely do that. Let's see, interactive scripts. You can definitely do prompts on your action patterns. That was something that we covered in the last one. If you want to do 2 pieces of information rather than just one, need more information on that, we can certainly do multiple bits of information. Different action patterns for holidays and school districts, linking them to general schedules. General schedules are still going to be a little bit tedious as far as that goes, because there's not a great wizard capability there. You're going to have some challenges with it, but it's not insurmountable. I've done it several times, Dawn, so we can definitely work on that together if you want to work on specific scenarios. I definitely see a lot of multiple activations versus a single zone. Definitely can do that. 1 trip versus 2 trip. Absolutely. I actually have scenarios out there built already, so I can definitely put those out there on Bold Talk after we cover some of this. You can definitely do confirmed to do different zones. So I can certainly, if we have time at the end of the session today, I can do a little bit of a confirmed alarm primer on that if we can talk about that. A lot of people don't want to use suspend because the time is counted in the alarm handling. Okay, all right, that's fair enough. There's also the can cancel that you can use, and then you can always put a little bit of that check after the can cancel. That's always a possibility there. You can definitely, for multi-trip, there's definitely the way, as I said, there's a lot of the ability to do multi-trip, and I can at least show you in my action patterns I've already built for those, so definitely do that. General schedules we covered in the first session, so we can definitely review that through the YouTube videos. So, all right, well, very good. I'm glad everybody's been so interactive with this. This is fantastic. This is really good information, and we'll definitely put a lot of this out on Bold Talk after the session goes. So perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch this poll for everybody real quick. See how everybody does. See what everybody's thinking. I'm glad to see that a lot of you have now seen ManitouNEO Enhanced Action Patterns at least once or twice. That's wonderful. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. And I'm going to share the results. That's much better. I'm liking that we're seeing a lot more of you have seen the ManitouNEO Enhanced Action Patterns now. That's fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is querying the database. Now, couple things that I want to talk about. Things get interesting from here on. Let me preface this with querying the database is no simple task. It does require an understanding of the database schema and the tags that will translate into Manitou features to read from the database. We have already built a number of common queries that we are always happy to share with you. However, if you are not confident writing SQL queries, or do not have a test server to test your queries against before rolling them out, please contact Bold before you test or roll out any query-based action patterns. So don't do it if you don't have someplace to test it before you actually start rolling on these. Now, as I said, we do have a bunch that we've already created, so feel free to play with the stuff we've already built. So What I have here is a low battery with a power fail. Many times we aren't super concerned about a single low battery event, but we are when a power fail was recently in the activity as well. So we want to make sure, because we want to know that that battery is probably like the last ditch effort for the site, and the site might be unprotected after that. So when the low battery alarm trips, instead of asking an operator to review the activity log for an AC power failure in the history, now you can have ManitouNEO do the searching for you. To do this, you have to query the database by looking at the customer log, and also known as the C log, for the last month and the previous month. Who knows why, if I'm only going back 4 hours, why you would have to look for 2 months worth of activity? Put your answer in the question section. Yay, you guys are getting it right. Perfect. That's exactly it. Yep. Fantastic. Right, because of the fact that it is the last 4 hours could cross over a midnight, and GMT, remember GMT happens either before or after your last midnight time. So perfect. Now on the right hand side, you can see that I've drawn a flow chart, and it's a pretty simple one. It says I got a low battery, and was there a power fail in the last 4 hours? If yes, we're going to contact the customer and contact responsible parties. If not, we're going to close the alarm. So it's pretty straightforward as to what we're trying to accomplish. The biggest thing is that we need to be able to query the database to do so. So that's really, really the most important part of it, is that we have to be able to query the database. So what does it look like in Manitou? So we're going to go in and we're going to take a look, and I'm going to show you where I built it. So I'm going to be in my monitoring company under my action patterns, and I've got this low battery action pattern. And I'm going to go into edit mode so it's a little bit easier to read. And I'm actually going to zoom in, Control plus, sorry. There we go. So it's a little bit easier for people to read. So I'm doing a set command, and I'm setting a variable. This @verify doesn't have to be verify. It can be look. It can be any word you want it. It's just a variable so that I'm going to query the database. And I'm going to select from the database a count from the C-log 0, which is this month. And you'll see here I also have C-log 1, which is last month, where the ST code is AT, which is my AC treble, and the serial number is me, which is my current customer. And the log date is greater than or equal to the date add of hours -4, and then the DU, which is in my script messages. So if I look at my script messages, I'm going to grab my my document here. I'm going to pull up my script messages. There we go, script message codes, and my DU. Oh no, I have to update my script messages codes apparently. Let's see, select. I'm gonna have to find out what DU is, because apparently my script message code is not up to date. But the DU plus select count from C-log 1, where ST code. So basically it's just looking for all of that information, and it's going for the last 4 hours. And then we're going to log it, because we want to know whether or not it had it in the system. Alarm vet date and time. Thank you, Kim. Good job. It is in the attached handout. Good. All right, perfect. All right. So DU is the alarm date and time. Perfect. So great job, everyone, for catching me and supporting me on this. And then we want to log that information. And then we want to verify if it's greater than or equal to 1. If it's greater than or equal to 1, then we want to contact the site, the key holder, and close the alarm. Otherwise, we just want to close the alarm. So excellent work, everybody, for helping me through that. And we want to make sure that all of those pieces are in place so we can then run through and verify this particular low battery action pattern. So we are going to run a low battery through one of our accounts because we know we haven't had an AC power fail on Bolt Technologies at any time recently. So I'm going to zoom back out of this. So zoom back out. So we're going to send in a manual signal again. And this time I'm going to do a YT, system battery trouble. Let's just make sure that that in there has that low battery action pattern. We'll just make sure absolutely that it's going to have that action pattern on it. All right. So we're going to send in that system battery trouble and check that out. Even before I even had a chance to look in the alarm queue or the activity log, it's already gone through and cleared it out. Now I'm going to do an AC trouble, send that sucker through. All right. And now we'll send that YT back through. And now we have an alarm for that system battery trouble for Bolt Technologies. And there it is, call the customer, call the responsible parties, and close the alarm. Because of the fact that the AT event code apparently tripped twice. Not sure why it listed it as twice instead of once. I'll have to verify with the guys. But it did get an AC trouble in the last 2 hours, and there is my alarm because of it. So I'm going to ignore my actions because I'm a really bad operator, and I'm going to close out this alarm as an actual alarm, and we are done with the alarms. And no, I'm not going to keep my alarm tracking. Yes, I'm out of there. All right. Let's see. Kim says the voice was lost. Is anyone able to hear me? Let's see if everybody could do their hand raising again. Let's see. Looks like people are able to hear me. So Kim, if you can reconnect. Okay, we're good. All right, perfect. All right, so that was a simple query on the database. Now, there's a couple others that I know that people have been talking about with the multiple trips and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about a few of those. Let's see, where did I put them? Let's see. Now, this network trouble one, I actually use quite a bit for multiple counts. This one is actually one that we actually do for if you're using can cancel, like we were talking about earlier, where people are having it where I don't want to have it be suspended for the period of time because it affects the response time. You can use your can cancel where you can actually have it log if it actually clears itself out, but then if it trips multiple times, then you want to escalate it or something like that. This is where I have the network trouble in place. So for example, if I have a network trouble or communication failure, I use my can cancel, and then I can actually have the can cancel go through, but if it trips multiple times in a period of time, and this one I have it set for 60 minutes, so it's the last 60 minutes that I'm looking for. And that's one of those ones that I can really do that. Let's see. Well, sometimes the else statement does show in the alarm form and other times it doesn't. I'm going back and forth with the developers to find out why. Sometimes it does show and sometimes it doesn't. So good question, Tandra. I am kind of feeding back and forth with them to find out where the logic will show and why why it shows, so I don't have a 100% answer yet, but I am trying to verify on some of that. So good question on that, and I will follow up with you when I do know more about that. Let's see. There's other ones that have multiple trips. Let me see if it's on the Bold Technologies account. Let's verify. Yes, this is my case for multiple trips. So I have selected an account on, and this happens to be my BA2 event codes. So what I'm doing, and now you can do it for whatever event codes you want. I just happened to pick BA2, so I wasn't interacting with my sales team on their regular burglar alarms. But so, for example, I am counting from the logs for the BA2 event codes, and I'm looking at the zones, and I'm looking at the log dates and all of that. So I'm going through the exact same stuff that I was looking at before, and I'm getting the UTC date for it. I could get the actual event code date. It doesn't matter what I was doing as far as that goes. I just wanted to get the zone and the log date for it. And same thing, current and last month. And then I was looking for multiple trips. So I was saying, getting a count, case if there's one, case if there was two, and case if there was greater than two. So if it was only one, then I was emailing and closing the alarm. If there was two, I would email and contact the customer at the site. If there was greater than two, I was contacting a call list and contacting the police and closing alarm with the resolution code. So that's really where that case statement comes into play. Just like we were talking about during the last time, we were really trying to focus on building those case statements. So remember, if and else is going to be when there's two solutions. Case is when there's multiples. So always, always, always trying to remember that you have the ability to do cases when there's multiple choices, but you have to really be able to select what it is from the activity and then determine what your cases are from there. So for those of you who are asking about that for multiple trips, does that meet your needs? So go ahead and put your responses in the question field. So far, yes, great, wonderful. So for those of you who are not query people, that's all right. I've built this query already, and we can always make minor adjustments for it. Your zones, there's no way for me to know whether or not it's a motion versus a door. So yes, you would have to be able to program your zones, your different zones based on whether it's a motion or a door, because there's no way for me to know. So there are different choices though. One of the cool things about our stuff is that you do have the ability in here. So let me just throw a test in here. And I'm going to throw it over here in my Berg section. Is if I go into my logic here, you can actually say event value, for example, and you could actually say, for example, let's see, your event zone description. If your event zone description contains motion, if you wanted to. So you do have the ability to say something as specific as that, as long as you have that kind of bit in there. So you do have some flexibility in there as long as your data has that kind of matching stuff in there. So you do have the flexibility, but remember, it's that flexible, which means that if it doesn't match, you're not going to match. So you do have to be very careful with it too. So absolutely you can do it. Yes, yes. Garbage in, garbage out. You got it. So great, fantastic. So I'm glad that does meet your need. So that's why I always challenge you guys, get in there, poke around. We do have the sandbox server. You can get in there and you can muck around with this. Try all of these different if statements with the field types, because you do have all sorts of different ways that you can play with this. Customer values, status flags, signal qualifiers, variables, alarm states. Alarm states are fantastic because you can actually say if it's canceled, if it's confirmed, if it's restored, if it has a prior action completed. So if I made a contact to somebody, I can actually say a prior action was completed. Whatever you have there, there's lots of different ways to poke at it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's why you have that sandbox to trial and error. By the way, there is a sale on training servers, so our sales guys do have some really good end of the year deals on training servers that might be worthwhile considering, so that you can really get in there and practice on a system that's not going to break your entire database. So anyway, that was my sales plug. I get the credit for it, I hope. So anyway, that really get in there and poke around. We do have the sandbox database. I really want you to try it because there are some really cool things that you may not have even thought about yet that are worthwhile trying. So with that said, I'm going to give you another poll. It's the same poll question from last time. So do you think enhanced action patterns are easy, difficult, or the jury's still out? Yes, it does take a lot of thought. You do have to spend time thinking about it to get ahead of it. You're right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and share the information. All right, so we're still at about 43% saying the jury's still out, but I think that we're still good. We're not saying that we can't do it, which I think is really, really important. So thank you guys so much for that. Your poll only had yes, no options? Huh, that's weird. We'll have to test that later. All right, so let me get us back to our bit here. So what other things might you want to look for in your action patterns again? So same question, like to get more feedback here so that I can really get this going to our development team as well, so that they know what things you're really looking for trying to accomplish in your ManitouNEO system. They're really working hard on this stuff, and I really want to give them as much information as possible. So if you've got any other ideas, things that you really want to try and accomplish, I'd really like to know. Action pattern to create a maintenance issue. Yep, that would be fantastic. I really would love that too. And I thought we had it, but I haven't been able to see it myself. So absolutely. All right. You just keep those questions coming. I'm going to post one more poll. I'm not sure what you mean by integrating with Notify Me. Notify Me is happening with your commands and your event codes and the signal handler. So I'm not quite sure what you're asking with that. Let's see. Action pattern that determines at a specific time if the account still has outstanding signals. You can always query the customer log. So technically, yes, you can do all sorts of different things. You also have your general schedules. So you can use your general schedules and your querying of the database. So there's lots of different ways you can look at things. Changing the alarm priority based on the account type, commercial. Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's see. Doesn't work with. Let's see, suspend with priority change. Doesn't work with an auto client though, without an auto client. You have to have an auto client, yes, absolutely, for some of these things to happen. There's also some things that will auto run. So you do have the checkbox items for auto run. So there are some things that will auto run without the need of the auto client, but there are some things that you do need the auto client for. The auto client kind of is a really big feature of this. There are also signal processing attributes. So signal processing attributes can also have a huge effect on the way things behave within the alarm queue as well. So there are some things to consider there. You can also, you can suspend things for 2 seconds and set their priorities lower. That's things that I've done as well. So for example, if I wanted to lower my priority for something that was UL that had already restored, things like that, I can certainly do that. All sorts of things. I can raise and lower priorities. I can escalate, all sorts of stuff like that. Absolutely, you can do the escalate with can cancel commands. I've also done the escalate for lowering priorities after panic alarms, things like that. So yeah, there's all sorts of great features there. So wonderful. I appreciate all that feedback. So I now have one last poll for everybody. And this time I did remember to put in all of the above. So there we go. I'm launching that. That is great information to have. And we're going to go ahead and close this poll and share that information. So yeah, it looks like a lot of you really can get a lot out of the queries of the database, but also being able to just have the if restored. I know that's been huge for a lot of people, just being able to say, yeah, if it's restored, we're going to go ahead and clear it out, but we have all these UL accounts or something like that, or you've got a high priority account. You can do a lot of things now just because of the fact that you can just, with just a small tweak, say, with the exception of these ones, because I know so many times a lot of people have done the whole bit with their customers where they're constantly going, oh, it depends, it depends, it depends. Well, now we have the ability to say it depends all the time in our action patterns, which is really huge for us. So I'm very excited for you guys. All right, so what did we cover today? We covered how to use if statements to select values from the database live on the state of the value and at the time of the alarm. We also learned how to write a query against the database to count the number of events of a specific type. And so we're very, very excited for you to get that going. So I really, really, really want to challenge you. I want you to go into either your test system or the Manitou sandbox system, and I want you to come up with a scenario based on your customer needs that uses either one of those event values, customer values, or a basic little query that looks at the customer's log or at an event code in the customer log for this month and last month, 0 and 1, and see if you can't build an action pattern that queries that history or that customer event value. I would start with the drop downs first and see what you can do. Try it out. You can't break our system because we can rebuild it. All right, so give it a shot. I challenge you. Let us know how you do. And then hopefully we'll get some good feedback out of it. All right, so thank you guys so much for your time. If you have any questions, keep asking them. We really, really do appreciate it. And please take the time to feed back to us and please give it a try. All right. I am here. I've still got a few more minutes left on our hour, so I will be reading your questions and feeding back anything that's going on. And remember, we do have the Bold Genius Resource Library with all of the different quick reference guides. I am going to stay on here for a few more questions, so feel free to stay on and ask them. The can cancel would go first. Nicole, just to let you know, can cancel is always going to happen before it actually happens in what they call pre-alarm state. So that is something that we do prior to the alarm actually hitting the alarm cue. So that would happen first, and then the alarm would hit the cue if it hasn't canceled itself. Ooh, lots. I think I got a lot of questions here. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time, too. I appreciate it. Do I need a time frame to wait for a restore? Basically, it really depends on your business practices if you need a time frame to wait for your restores. It depends on how busy your alarm queue is and whether or not an operator is right on top of every alarm or if the alarms will tend to linger in your alarm queue. So Generally, what I would do is I build a suspend in, because my operations were that the operators were getting every single alarm within a few seconds. But other operations, some of those lower priority alarms could sit there for a couple minutes and could restore themselves within the time frame that they were not being actually handled. So it really depends on your business practice and what your alarm queue looks like on a regular basis. So I think it really just comes down to you sitting and looking at what your alarm queue behavior looks like. So thank you very much, Nicole, for asking that question. The time frame in the event actions restore required. The event actions for the restore required is only required if you're doing a restore overdue. If that's what you're asking for. If you're expecting a restore overdue and you have the checkbox on the transmitter set, then you would have to have a time so that you can get a restore overdue. But if you do not have the restore overdue checkbox turned on, you do not have to set a time in the restore required. Confirmed and can cancel there's no order of operations with that. Can cancel is going to work as can cancel does. Confirmed works as confirmed works. There is no order of operations. One is not going to work on top of each other. They are going to work independently of each other. So in transmitter programming commands, you can have can cancel and you can have confirmed, but they work independently, not in any order of operations. All right, well, if there's no other questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for all of your time. Remember, you've got the Bold Genius Resource Library, and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. You guys have a great day and have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you, and have a great day.